Welcome to this video on the digestive system. We're going to have a quick look at the overview of the digestive system so that you have an understanding of it before we go on to talk about its functions in terms of absorption, assimilation, etc., which you're going to need for your next assignment. So your objectives, once my PowerPoint is actually working, there we go. Are 1, to describe the structure of the digestive system, and 2, to explain the roles of the digestive system itself. So what we'll do first is, just bear with me because this is I can have all the PowerPoint, is we're going to look at what each of these things do. Okay, so you can see here we've got an overview of the digestive system itself, and what I'm going to quickly do is go through each of the bits. So make sure you're taking notes as you're listening to me talk. We're going to start obviously up in the mouth, which is where we insert food. Okay, so it's known as the oral cavity, and inside the mouth we've got different organs that help us digest food and obviously pass food down into the next kind of organs throughout the system. So in the mouth itself we've got the tongue, the teeth and the salivary glands. The teeth are obviously part of mechanical digestion, which chew the food up and break it down into smaller pieces. We have the salivary glands that secrete saliva, which contains enzymes which help to chemically break down the food. Also it moistens the food and acts as a lubricant so that when it goes through the esophagus and the stomach it doesn't get stuck. And finally we've obviously got the muscles of the mouth and the tongue, which help to move the food around your mouth and obviously pass it to the back of the throat, which then you swallow. So from the mouth then the food passes into the pharynx, okay, which you can see here. Now the pharynx has a couple of jobs in the respiratory system. However, in the digestive system we have the epiglottis within the pharynx, which from previous lessons stops food from entering the trachea and air from entering the esophagus. Okay, so in there it makes sure that the air and food go into the right tubes. Following on from the pharynx we move into the esophagus, which is a muscular tube that connects the mouth to the stomach. It's part of what we call the upper gastrointestinal tract, and at the bottom the inferior end of the esophagus, so around about here, okay, where the esophagus meets the stomach, we've got a muscular ring called the lower esophageal sphincter, okay, and that's sometimes the cause of heartburn. If you've overfilled your stomach and there's lots of acid, the sphincter can't close properly. Heartburn's caused by the stomach acid, the hydrochloric acid in your stomach bouncing back up into the esophagus and burning the walls. So if you suffer from heartburn, that's the reason. Essentially the sphincter is there at the end of the esophagus to make sure the food doesn't bounce back up into the esophagus, but obviously, as I've just said, that can sometimes go wrong. So the stomach itself then is a muscular sac, and one of its jobs is to churn the food up and to start kind of the digestive process. So in there we digest a lot of water, and if you've been drinking a lot of alcohol, which goes straight into your bloodstream. It's located inferior to the diaphragm, okay, but just above your small and large intestines. Within there we secrete a lot of enzymes and hydrochloric acid, which help to start digesting the food, which previously has begun in the mouth. Okay, specifically carbohydrates we start to break down away from the mouth because amylase, the enzyme that breaks down carbohydrates, is secreted from the mouth itself. So moving from the stomach then we go into the small intestine, which you can see is this curled up little hose looking thing in the middle of the torso. Okay, it's very, very long, about 10 feet. It's 1 inch in diameter, and it's part of what we call the lower gastrointestinal tract. Okay, so the small intestine is where we absorb 90% of our nutrients. Okay, so there's huge amounts of digestion and absorption that goes on in there, partly due to the fact that the pancreas secretes lots and lots of enzymes through pancreatic juices into the small intestine, which takes a lot of it. On the walls of the small intestine we have little finger-like processes called villi, and the villi have a blood supply, a huge blood supply, and because we have lots and lots and lots of them, there's a huge surface area which allows for lots and lots of things to be absorbed. So your carbs, your proteins, your fats, your nucleic acids are all absorbed in the small intestine. Any kind of excess fluid gets absorbed up into the large intestine, which you can see wraps around the outside there. So any kind of final little bits of fluid will be absorbed there, and at the end of that you'll have your feces, your poo. Before we get there though, there's a couple of little things that have jobs. So the liver, which we can see up on the left hand side there, has different functions, but its main function is the production of bile, which it gets secreted into the small intestine. The gallbladder, which you can see just underneath the liver here, the green organ, is used to store and recycle the excess bile from the small intestine, so that we can continually have bile available from kind of previous productions and obviously new production as well. Bile itself is an acid, and it's critical for digestion and absorption of fats and fat-soluble vitamins. Okay, so bile is needed to absorb the fats, or to help us absorb the fats. The pancreas, as I've already kind of alluded to, is just a big gland, and it's located just inferior and posterior to the stomach. Its job is to secrete digestive enzymes into the small intestine, which helps to complete the chemical digestion process. And like I said, the large intestine absorbs the water. And at the end of the large intestine, we have the rectum, which stores the feces before it is passed through the anus and released from the body. Okay, so the 6 primary rules of digestion, then we've kind of already covered a lot of them there. The ingestion of food, which occurs in the mouth, the excretion of fluids and digestive enzymes, which we can start off in the mouth through the salivary glands, the pancreatic juices from the pancreas, which goes into the small intestine. We've obviously got hydrochloric acid in the stomach, which all helps to digest food, which contain lots and lots of enzymes. The mixing and movement of food, so the tongue, the muscles in the esophagus, the muscle peristalsis through the small intestine, which is just the movement of food through the digestive system itself. We've got the digestion of food in smaller pieces that happens or occurs in 2 different ways. With mechanical digestion, which is the process of breaking food down using teeth, so physically breaking it down through muscles and teeth, and chemical digestion, which is the use of enzymes, chemicals in your body to help break it down, so your acids, your enzymes, your saliva, your glands and things like that. Finally, second from last, we've got absorption of nutrients, which occurs from the stomach, which is the water from the stomach. 90% of it occurs in the small intestines through the villi in the blood supply, and a little bit more of fluid taken from the large intestines. Okay, and finally we've got the excretion of waste products, which happens through defecation, through feces, but it can also occur through the urinary system, through weeing. We're going to come on to them in another video though, so I'm going to leave them where we are. Okay, so the functions, so this is kind of what you need to be talking about in your assignment, linking back to the organs that we've just discussed and their jobs. So digestion is the process of turning large pieces of food into smaller component chemicals. Okay, and I've already alluded to, there's 2 different types: the mechanical digestion, the physical breakdown of food, for example chewing in the mouth, and also chemical digestion that occurs through the secretion of enzymes in your saliva, through the pancreatic juices, through the hydrochloric acid in the stomach. Okay, absorption is the process of removing the nutrients and water from the digested food that we've eaten into the body itself. Okay, so we've talked about it starts in the stomach. A lot of it occurs in the small intestine, and some water and vitamins B and K are absorbed in the large intestines. Okay, so you need to be talking about that, what it is and where it occurs. Assimilation is the movement of digested food molecules into cells of the body. So a really good example of this is when we've broken down the carbohydrates that we eat into glucose, or even the glycogen that we stored in the muscles and liver into glucose. It moves around in the blood and is eventually put into the cells for respiration, so aerobic and anaerobic respiration. So that is assimilation, the actual using and putting of the molecules that we've broken down. The large molecules we've broken down, the small molecules moving into the cells itself. The final function, which again we're going to touch on in another video, is excretion. So it's the removal of waste products through defecation or from wee in the urinary system. Okay, short sharp video, okay, which covers the main points of what you need to be talking about in your assignment to begin with. So watch the next couple of videos, that'll help you out with the rest of it.